Peter Basaka. I own WashingtonBBI, a business consulting and business brokering firm. So addressing this question here of is your business sellable is basically what I do for a living, helping people to get their businesses into sellable shape. And I like the metaphor of walking down the I-beam. If you're on an I-beam, for those of us who can remember ever having been on one, if you look at your toes, what happens?
You fall.
You fall, exactly. Whereas if you keep your eye focused on where you're trying to get to, your odds of getting there are pretty good, right? So if you want to achieve your goals, you need to have goals, and you need to stay focused on where you're trying to get to. And that is essentially the metaphor for making your business sellable. Now we're going to talk today about some of the attributes that buyers look for. We're also going to, in terms of positives, what they want to see in a business, we're going to look for some attributes that they look for that they don't want to see in your business. But keep in mind this metaphor, or another one would be getting into your car, getting ready to and pulling out into traffic, and taking a snapshot of what is ahead, and then trying to drive your car to that snapshot. That's not going to work out very well. And the reason why, of course, is because if you don't stay focused on where you're getting to or where you're heading toward, if you don't take a look at the possibilities of kids running out in the street or whatever the potential problems or opportunities might be, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of them, and you'll probably end up dead or killing somebody else, right? Isn't that a wonderful metaphor for a business? Which is why we went with the balance beam. So my childhood hero, and perhaps yours, was Alfred E. Newman, the What Me Worry from Mad Magazine. So I don't think Alfred would be a very good planner. Do you? If he never worried about things, he probably never thought about tomorrow or planning for the future. So I kind of use that as an example of things that you should worry about. You should be doing planning. And you have some decisions ahead of you. If you start a business, it makes sense to have an exit plan in mind. Otherwise, why bother starting one? Right? Why not just go to work for somebody else? So if you own a business, then thinking about where you're trying to get to makes some sense. But is selling your business your only option for exiting your business? And the answer is no, not really. You could simply dissolve it, liquidate your assets. You could do what we call a null exit. Now, a null exit is where you have such a good team of people working for you that you feel free to leave for, say, a month's vacation at a time, and knowing that when you get back, your business will be running as well or better than when you're there. If you have that confidence and that experience of a team, then you don't really have to exit your business. You can just go on a semi-permanent vacation and stop in from time to time to make sure the numbers look good. This is very similar to the chairman of the board emeritus. And I actually used to work for one of these guys. He'd show up every quarter. So he had a good team of people. He hired a CEO or a president to oversee his company. And then he'd show up quarterly for the quarterly board meetings to bark at people. And it was bark, bark, bark for as long as he was there. And then he would disappear, and we would all sigh with great relief and get on with what we're doing anyways. You could license your IP, you could license your technology, or think about farmers. I mean, what do farmers do? They spend their lives accumulating all of this land, then they retire. Do they sell the land? No. They lease the land to other farmers who they know are good farmers and will take good care of the land, right? And so they either rent it to them, or they have a share in the crops, share cropping. So you can do similar things, or you might be able to do similar things with your business. Of course, another way of exiting the business is to become fabulously wealthy. This is the tech startup's dream, right? To get an IPO and get Carl Sagan level numbers coming in, billions and billions of dollars in our coffers. Or you could sell your business. So let's focus on that. If you want to sell your business, if you are thinking, what do I need to be doing today and tomorrow to begin preparing my business for eventual sale? And that's what exit planning is, or sometimes I call it sellability planning. If you're thinking about what you need to do now to begin preparing for the future, then maybe you want to stop and think, okay, who do I want to sell to? And there are 5 and only 5 types of buyers for any business. So the first, of course, you could sell it to your kids. Second is you can sell it to your employees. So there is sort of a Maslow's hierarchy in terms of preparing your business. If you're selling to your kids, you want to make it absolutely idiot-proof. You want to lock in your customers, you want to lock in your vendors, you want to do everything in your power so your kids won't fail, because I'm assuming you like your kids. Your employees, on the other hand, already know how to run the business, so it's a little easier to prepare for an employee buyout. Although there are some funky tax things and manipulations you can do with organizational types to help facilitate that. This is the one that I run into a lot. Business owners who just assume they're going to sell their business to a competitor down the road. Oh, when I go to retire, I'll just sell it to Bob. Bob will buy it. Well, Bob may buy it, but is Bob going to buy the whole thing? Bob probably only wants to pay you for the things Bob doesn't have. He doesn't have your customers. There may be some other things that you have that he wants, but he probably probably already has an accounting system, computer systems, probably already has shelves, probably doesn't want to take over your lease, and there are things that Bob isn't going to want to pay for. And as you're thinking about preparing your business, it's okay to target Bob. Just know that you're not going to get as much money for your business when it comes time to sell it as you would if you sold it to a financial buyer or investor. Now there's 2 types of financial buyers. There's individuals and there's private equity groups. The philosophy here is buy low, sell high, and milk off the cash flow in between. So if your business is going to sell for, say, $2 million or less, it's going to be an individual who buys that. And can you target an individual? Can you go to the internet and download a list of interested buyers for your business? No. So pretty much all you can do is throw your business up on a multiple listing service and hope that your phone call or that your phone rings. Now, private equity groups, they will buy companies, say 5 million and larger, or actually what they do is they look at EBITDA, and we'll talk a little bit about this. They look at your earnings, and if your earnings are more than $1 million, or more than $10 million, or there's different size private equity groups, and some of them specialize in certain industries. So if you have an attractive earnings history, and you're in certain industries, then specific private equity groups might be interested in you. If you're in a different industry, other ones. So they do kind of specialize. So you've got family, you've got employees, you've got a competitor down the road, Bob, and you've got private equity groups or private investors. You also have strategic buyers. Now, by definition, a strategic buyer is a near competitor from outside the geographic area who may pay a premium to get what you've got. Strategic buyers tend to buy for one of 2 reasons, positive or negative. If you have a product or a service, for example, which plugs a hole in their product line, They may want to buy your company to plug that hole so that they can sell your products to their customers, ideally sell their products to your customers. They may also buy if you are gotten to be a real thorn in their side. So sometimes they buy for negative reasons just to get you off the street and stop competing with you. And there's nothing wrong with that. So let's think about that buyer. We're kind of going through the thought process of what do we need to be doing now and tomorrow to begin planning to sell our business, to make our business sellable and attractive to the kind of buyer that we want to sell to in the future when we want to sell. That's kind of the point of exit planning, right? So for most of the people in the room, if you were to sell your businesses, I'm guessing it would likely be another individual who would buy your business rather than a larger company. So let's talk and let's focus primarily on individuals buying companies. So if we're going to prepare well for an individual to buy our company, we need to understand a little bit about what that buyer's fears and hopes are. When we prepare our business for sale, we want to address those fears, and we want to be an exemplary on the hopeful side, right? And we'll get into that a little bit more. But a buyer's greatest fear, an individual buyer's greatest fear, is they're going to totally muck it up. Now, if they're buying your company, they're probably going to need to take out a large loan, right? They're going to come talk to Rob. They're going to put their life savings, because Rob's going to say, all right, well, how much money do you have to put down? And they go, you want all of it? Rob's going to say, and then some. So they're going to put their life savings down. They're probably going to need to take a lien out against their house. And how is the spouse going to feel about risking the house? To get this, the spouse will be publicly supportive of their spouse, but privately they'll be up at night, probably flipped on the other side of the bed, staring the other direction, worrying about losing their house and the dissolution of their family. So buyers have legitimate worries that you can address, maybe not directly, but sort of indirectly, to make your business more attractive to buy by addressing the buyer's hopes and fears. That make sense? Okay. So now that we understand something about what's keeping these buyers up at night, let's talk more about the attributes that buyers look for. What do they look for in a company? Understand that when they come looking at your company, they're not only going to put your company and your financials under a microscope, they're going to have a huge spotlight shining down too, right? They're really going to be focused on dissecting your company. The first thing that they're going to look for is earnings, right? What is your earnings history? Now, if your firm has 5 years of consecutive, positive, and growing earnings, automatically you are attracted to somebody for purchase, right? 5 years of consecutive, positive, growing earnings. Now what's earnings? Who can define earnings for me other than Rob and Earl? So earnings is not your revenues. Earnings is what's left over after you paid everything. So it could be net income. Net income is one measure of earnings, right? So net income is basically your revenues minus your cost of goods sold, leaves you with operating income, which helps you to pay your expenses like rent, electricity, telephone, cell phones, whatever, all of your expenses. What's left over after you pay taxes and all of it is net income, and that's the figure that gets reported to the IRS, right? And we pay certified public accountants, CPAs, a fair amount of money because they're really smart about helping you to minimize your net income so that you can minimize your tax liability. So is net income the best measure to look at when buying a business or when selling a business? Probably not. There's other measures. If your firm is a corporation, then we typically look at EBIT and EBITDA as the measures of earnings to benchmark and compare different corporations. Because remember, buyers, they've got choices. There's more than just your company on the market. And so buyers have choices as to which company to buy, which one they feel the best about buying, which one's going to keep them, help them to not only pay off the loan, but also feed their family, pay the mortgage, and grow the business. Those are the things that the buyers worry about, right? So that earnings history is critical. That's the first hurdle that you need to leap over, and it's the first thing the buyers are going to look for. Now, EBIT and EBITDA, I don't want your eyes rolling in the back of your head. It's earnings before interest and taxes, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. If you have any questions about that, I have no doubt that these three gentlemen right along the side, tic, tac, and toe, can help you to address exactly what those things mean. But there's another one for small companies like ours in this room. It's called seller's discretionary earnings. And that's an important one. It's important because it's probably a better measure for small businesses. It's also important because, frankly, most business brokers really mess up in calculating seller's discretionary earnings. But essentially what it is all of the benefits that the owner of the company derives from owning the company. So it is net income plus a salary they get, plus anything that they are expensing that isn't going to go with the sale of the firm, like card or maybe cell phones, and this actually happened. I was going through somebody's income statement, and there was for the size of company, it was a fairly sizable miscellaneous expense, $27,000 change. Help me to understand this. That shouldn't be there. I don't know how that got there. That's the patio that we added to the back of our house. That shouldn't be on there. You're not going to report me, are you? No, I'm not. But we do need to add that back. So it's all of those things that the owner derives a benefit from. Could be retirement, perfectly legitimate for the business to contribute to retirement funds. Could be medical insurance, could be other kinds of insurance. Things that won't stay with the business when the business gets sold. Those things need to get added back. And then you need to subtract out of that an average salary for a general manager for that size and kind of business in the industry they're in. If you do those things, net income plus all of the benefits minus the general, if you're to hire a general manager, a typical general manager's salary, then you're probably pretty close to the ballpark for seller's discretionary earnings.
Yeah, just a clarifying point, Peter, if you were coaching a business owner, say 3-4 years before they're getting ready to sell,
yeah,
you encourage them to maintain a clean set of books so you don't have to do all of these funky additions and subtractions to get the real number?
Those add backs are going to have to be there anyways.
So I mean like the patio.
Yes.
Right.
And that's actually one of the things that we'll look at. So when we're looking right now at the positive things,
right,
attributes that we want your businesses to look like or have,
yeah, we're
going to look in a minute about some of the things we don't want to see about your company, and that's exactly one of them.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect.
So here's one that the CPAs don't like. Because in most companies there's a multiple. When somebody goes to buy your business, they're going to pay you typically they're going to pay you some multiple of your earnings. If you're a distributor, usually it's twice your EBIT. So I want you to maximize your EBIT. Yeah, you'll pay a little more in taxes, but you'll more than get that back because of the multiples, right? So I encourage people 6 years before they want to sell it to maximize their net income as much as possible. And CPAs get all concerned because, we can always add that stuff back. No, not really. Earlier, you're the one with the great sports metaphors, and I'm here to tell you that if you go to minimize your earnings, you will not make as much money as if your focus is on maximizing. If you're playing not to lose, you won't have nearly the business value if you play to win. Simple as that. And it's hard for CPAs to argue that. So things that business buyers look for: earnings history first, foremost, most important. A viable business model, a strong management team, proven market, business processes and systems. Part of why people buy businesses is because there is existing business process, operations process, marketing, sales, etc. in place. Otherwise, they'd do a startup, wouldn't they? So having proven systems in place is part of the value of the company. Proven client relationships, and we're going to come back to this one, but having strong client relationships is one of the key things that they look for. And things that are potentially of strategic value. What does that mean? Well, what are some examples of strategic value? Well, what may be of strategic value is going to vary depending upon the industry that you're in. If you're in retail, for example, what are the top 3 aspects of retail, right? Location is the first one, and location is the second one. And location is the third one. The 3 most important aspects to retail is location, location, and location, right? If you're a manufacturing firm, what are some of the aspects of your company that could be of strategic value? Well, maybe you've got manufacturing capacity they want. Maybe it's where you're located. Maybe a Southern California manufacturer wants to buy your manufacturing company because you're able to do pretty much the same things, and then they don't have the cost of transportation. So that's an example. It could be product purchase discounts. I have a friend in Canada. We were talking about Canada earlier. I have a friend in Canada who asked, he was selling a plastic injection molding company, and the raw material for that are little plastic pellets. And he asked the buyer, so how do you buy your plastic pellets? And they go, oh, we buy it by the railroad car full. And he said, well, what is the next quantity discount for you? And he says, well, it happens to be the next railroad car full of plastic pellets. And the quantity discount was so deep for that next railroad car full, he was able to cost justify a 25% premium in the selling price of the company on raw materials purchase price alone. So having a smart broker, right, to be smart enough to ask those kinds of questions. And I can only hope that someday I'll be as smart as he is. So asking these kinds of questions helps to dig at what could be a potential strategic value. Now, it doesn't change the value of your company, but it may sure change the selling price if some of these things are there. Value and selling price really are 2 slightly different things. If you're a distributorship, what could be of strategic value there? Well, it could be your location, it could be your customer base, it could be the relationships you have with certain vendors that somebody else doesn't have, it could be lots of other things. All right, so work with people who are familiar with this area to help figure out what is in your company that could be of strategic value to the right kind of a buyer. So those are attributes you want to have and want to be able to tout when it comes time to sell your company, right? So what are the things you don't want to have? Well, inconsistent earnings is the first one right off the bat. If you've got inconsistent earnings that you're reporting, ups and downs in your business, that's a problem, right? Remember, investors don't want to kiss pigs. The dependence on a few large clients. Now, Rob, I bet you see that all the time in the area. We live in an area that has a large aerospace firm. Boeing, in case you're or unfamiliar. And I've seen a lot of machine shops who cater to Boeing. And maybe 80%, 90% of their business is from that one customer. Well, aerospace has cyclical ups and downs. So when Boeing is up, the machine shop is up. When Boeing is down, what happens to that machine shop? So one of the things that I counsel those kinds of companies with is to diversify their customers, right? If possible, no single customer should account for more than 10% of your revenues because of those ups and downs. Diversify your customer base, not just having multiple customers, but having them in different industries. Because if one industry goes south, you may be able to get carried through the downturn of the economy, by having a diverse customer base. So that, in part, goes back to your comment question earlier, Earl. Business plan. Do you have good targeting? Do you have good execution? One of the things that when I consult with a company, one of my first questions is, what are you good at? And you'd be surprised how, after I've studied the company, I've come to discover that what they're good at is very different than what they think they're good at. You ever been to Halifax, Nova Scotia? Don't. You can't get there from here. But I was consulting with a design engineering firm up there. And when I asked the question, what are you good at? They smiled and they said, we can design anything. And okay, so they're electronics engineers. They told me they had about 45 engineers on staff. More than half of them had PhDs in electrical or electronic engineering. The other half had at least master's degrees, and most of them were working on their PhDs. Wow, that is an impressive team. But what it turns out that they actually were good at is they were the masters of what's called field programmable gate arrays, FPGAs. And at that time, there were two major field programmable gate array chip vendors, and there was exactly one company in the world who was the masters of both chipsets. The only ones in the world that had the experience to say, for your needs, you really should go with this vendor or that vendor. And oh, by the way, we have the test beds for you, we have the management information basis, we have the software development kits, because we've been doing this for 25 years. And we'll not only help you to get your proof of concept up faster, we'll help you to get to market faster. And if you fail along the way, we'll bail your butts out, because we have the skill set to do that. Now, is that a more powerful expression of what they're good at than we can design anything? Nobody wants to buy, and if you're a development engineering team and you need help getting to a proof of concept up, do you want to hire the person that can help you get your project on track faster and has the experience and know how to do that, or somebody who can design anything? So these people, this was in 2001 in the very pits of the downturn of the economy and of technology. And that company was, once they retargeted, they thrived. So buyers look for this stuff. They look for your targeting. They look for your management team. Here's another one. And sometimes I'll run into a seller who says, oh, well, the net income, we do a lot of things cash, and it's cash under the table. So we're actually doing a lot better than what the financial statements say. So you want to sell your company. You're readily admitting that you're lying to the federal government. What makes me think that you wouldn't be lying to me, or that your financial statements are at all accurate? Okay, so if you're taking a lot of money under the table, my recommendation is don't brag about it. So keep that to yourself. Are there any questions about the rest of this list? Okay, so we talked today about what makes a business sellable. The main thing, the first thing out of the chute is earnings, 5 years of consecutive progressive earnings. We also talked about attributes to turn into positives. This list right here, these are all negatives. Look for them, turn them into positives. Are your earnings inconsistent over the last 5 years? Then over the next 5 years, make sure that they are consistent, consecutive, positive, growing earnings. Right, so turn the negatives into positive, into selling points for your company. How many people here have a business plan, a written business plan? Excellent, well done. How many have a written exit plan for their business? Okay, this is not unusual. About 10% of business owners in the country have written exit plans, and that is heavily skewed toward larger businesses because they have the staff and the team to help put that together. Those of us that are small businesses, if we have a choice of writing our exit plan or going and getting that next customer, which are we going to choose? We're going to spend our time where it's most productive. And we don't see exit planning as being particularly productive. And I'm here to tell you, it may be the most important thing that you do. Again, that balance beam, if you're not focused on where you're trying to get to, then you will find yourself looking at your toes, falling off the beam, putting out fires day to day. But if you are focused on your goals, you have a much greater chance of achieving them. And that's what salability planning can help you to do, help you to stay focused. So the benefits of salability planning, right? And remember that snapshot versus looking down the road where you're driving, right? It's not about the plan. It is about the planning. It is about the ongoing process of predicting and reacting and adjusting to what is coming up down the road. So exit planning is a living document type of a thing. And just focus on where you're trying to get to. The benefits to you of doing this kind of exit planning, this is why I think this is something worthwhile doing. One is that you'll increase the value of your business, right? And therefore you will retire better. You will make more money when it comes to sell it, and you will retire better by doing this, just regularly doing this kind of exit planning. You will make more money, and you will live better year after year. You'll reduce the amount of aggravation because you'll have better planning, better execution, and don't discount the next one on that line. You will sleep better, right? Like, forget the author of these Spy and Ludlum, Robert Ludlum. One of my favorite items of wisdom from Robert Ludlum was sleep is a weapon. And if you're a business owner, you better believe that is a weapon for you. It reduces BSO syndrome. Everybody know what BSO syndrome is?
Nope.
Bright, shiny object syndrome. One of the natures of entrepreneurs that will drive me and those three guys absolutely bonkers. Bankers hate it, CPAs hate it, business consultants hate it, CFOs hate it, is bright, shiny object syndrome. Right? And this is entrepreneurs for all of their classes are particularly vulnerable to BSO syndrome. And they'll see a bright, shiny object and they go, oh, I like it, it's bright, it's shiny, I like it, let's go do this. And the next bright, shiny object will come and go, oh, let's go do that. In the meantime, they're not moving forward along their path, getting to the destination that they want to go. Now, it may be that a shiny object comes along, that it makes sense. I mean, when we're driving down the road, detours happen that make sense. Maybe there was an accident when you want to go around it, right? So you don't have to adhere, ruthlessly to the plan. You do want to adjust, but bright, shiny object syndrome tends to distract business owners, entrepreneurs, away from the things that they need to be focusing on, right? The end of that balance beam, the end of the road as far as they can see, trying to get to achievement of their goals. And having a good exit plan will help them to stay maybe better focused than they otherwise would have. And that's a real value. So the people who care about this, You should care, because you're going to make more money, you're going to live better, you're going to retire better, with this kind of planning, ongoing planning process. But, this will be reflected in your vendors will see this, your banker will see this, your customers will see, because they want to do business with people that they are so successful that they have confidence are going to be there a year from now, 5 years from now, right? So it's more of a reflection that they see that will attract them to you, thus adding value to your business. We talked about the attributes that buyers look for. We talked about the attributes you want to look for in your business and turn those negatives into positives so you can tout those things. And we talked a little bit about sellability planning. All right. It's been an honor to talk with all of you today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for staying awake. Much appreciated.
Thank you.